Let's complete the square for some circle equations. Now when it says complete the square for a circle, that sounds kind of odd, but first of all, when I say completing the square, I'm not referring necessarily to a shape where like, oh look, we completed the square. Okay, it's not that. But we're going to be dealing with a lot of perfect squares in this, and it's going to help us finish writing some circle equations. So the first one that we see says write the equation for the circle in standard form. It also tells us that we need to find the radius and the center, which we'll get to later. But we need the equation first. So before I'm done, I'm going to have an equation that looks like this. It's going to be like x minus h squared and then y minus k squared equals r squared. R is the radius, h, k is the center. So this needs to look like that. And if I'm going to get this to look like that, then I better start factoring. And before I factor, I really need to group some things together. So let's take a look at it. This is all one group, one expression that I really can factor together. So if you wanted to, you could put parentheses here. I don't know why I'm switching colors, but I am. And I can put parentheses here, just because. Now, not all of them we do today are going to be that easy, but this one groups pretty well. It's a good one to start with. So if I was to look at that, I'd say, oh, you know what, this factors. X squared plus 4x plus 4. Well, two numbers multiply to give me 4 that add together to give me 4. Must be 2 and 2. So x plus 2 and x plus 2. Now, if you're thinking, well, how are we going to get here? We'll get there in a minute. Trust me, you'll see. But let's jump over here and do the same thing to the group of things that has the y in it. Now, this doesn't have a y in the term, but it's necessary to really do what needs to be done here. So if I was to factor this, obviously I have a y and a y. Two numbers multiply to give me 49, 7 and 7. And if I add them, I get negative 14. So it must be negative 7 times negative 7. And the only thing we haven't really dealt with yet is the fact that I have a 1 here. So bring it down, equals 1. Now if you're looking ahead, knowing that I need to turn this into this, then you'll probably realize, well, first of all, this 1 is r squared. So r squared is 1, which really square root of that would still be 1, so r is 1. But in this case, this also, even though it's already factored, I can simplify it a little bit. Y minus 7 times y minus 7, well that's y minus 7 and it is squared. And then x plus 2 times x plus 2, that is x plus 2 and it is squared. And so now we have the general structure that's in place that makes this equation look like a standard form circle equation. So I glance at it and I say, okay, well that works. So just in case they needed to know, here's the center. It's going to be at the opposite of this and the opposite of this, so negative 2 comma 7. And then the radius is, well, the square root of 1, which I already talked about, and that is just 1. So there's your first example. They're going to get a little bit crazier, but first, before we get into the crazy ones, we're going to need to understand a few basic skills about how to complete the square. We haven't really done that yet.